It began as a gentle patter against the window, a soft drumming that lulled the city to sleep. But as the hours slipped by, the rain grew heavier, relentless, as if the sky itself had split open and decided never to close again. The boy, whose name was Jamie, lay in bed listening to the storm, the sound of water cascading down the gutters and pooling in the streets below. At first, it was comforting, a familiar lullaby that made the world outside feel distant and safe. But as the night wore on, the wind howled louder, rattling the old wooden frames of the house, and the rain became a constant roar. By morning, the world outside his window was unrecognizable. The street had vanished beneath a rising tide, cars sat half-submerged, and the neighbors' gardens were now small lakes, their flowers drowned and bobbing in the murky water. The power flickered, the lights stuttering like the heartbeat of a frightened animal, and Jamie's mother moved through the house with a torch, her face drawn and pale. "It's just a storm," she said, trying to sound reassuring, but her voice trembled, betraying her fear. The radio crackled with warnings: stay indoors, avoid flooded roads, conserve power, but the signal faded in and out, swallowed by static and the endless drumming of rain. Days passed, and the world shrank to the dim, candlelit rooms of their home. The outside was a gray, shifting sea, and the only sounds were the storm and the occasional distant wail of a siren. Jamie watched the water creep higher, licking at the front steps, seeping under the door, and he wondered if it would ever stop. The air inside grew damp and heavy, the walls sweating with condensation, and every shadow seemed to flicker with a threat of something unseen. At night, the house groaned and shifted, the old floorboards creaking as if the storm was pressing in from all sides, and Jamie found it harder and harder to sleep. He would lie awake, listening to the rain, the wind, and the strange, muffled noises that seemed to come from beneath the floor. At first, he thought it was just the house settling, or maybe the water moving through the pipes, but then one night, he heard it clearly, a slow, deliberate knocking as if someone or something was trapped below, trying to get out. He froze, heart pounding, straining to hear over the storm, and the knocking came again, louder this time, echoing up through the floorboards beneath his bed. He wanted to call for his mother, but the fear caught in his throat, and he lay there, paralyzed, as the storm raged on, and the knocking continued, steady and insistent, like a heartbeat in the dark. As the days blurred into one another, the storm showed no sign of relenting, and the world outside became a memory, a place Jamie could only visit in his mind. The water had risen so high that the lower floor was now uninhabitable, and he and his mother had retreated upstairs, living out of suitcases and eating cold food from tins by the light of flickering candles. The air was thick with the smell of damp and mold, and every surface felt clammy to the touch. The knocking beneath the floor grew more frequent, sometimes soft and tentative, other times frantic and desperate, and Jamie found himself listening for it, dreading and longing for it in equal measure. He tried to tell his mother, but she was exhausted, her nerves frayed by the endless storm, and she dismissed it as the house settling, or perhaps rats driven inside by the flood. But Jamie knew it was something else, something alive and aware, something that waited for the storm to cover its sounds. One night, unable to bear it any longer, he crept out of bed and knelt on the floor, pressing his ear to the cold, damp wood. The knocking was there, rhythmic and purposeful, and as he listened, he thought he could hear a voice, faint and distorted, calling his name from the darkness below. Panic surged through him, but curiosity held him in place, and he whispered, "Who's there?" The knocking stopped, replaced by a silence so deep it seemed to swallow the storm itself, and then, slowly, a single word rose up from the depths: "Help." Jamie recoiled, scrambling back, but the voice came again, pleading, insistent, and he realized with a chill that it sounded like his own. The days that followed were a blur of fear and confusion. The storm outside was unending, the world shrinking to the small, candlelit room, and the knocking beneath the floor became a constant companion, a reminder that something was trapped down there, waiting. Jamie's mother grew weaker, her face gaunt and her eyes hollow, and Jamie felt the weight of the storm pressing down on him, suffocating and inescapable. He began to dream of water, endless and dark, rising up to swallow the house, and in his dreams, he saw himself beneath the floor, pounding on the boards, begging to be let out. The line between waking and dreaming blurred, and Jamie wondered if he was the one trapped, if the storm had always been inside him, waiting for the right moment to break free. The rain never stopped, the water never receded, and the knocking beneath the floor became the only thing that felt real, a heartbeat in the endless dark, a reminder that some storms never end. They simply become a part of you, echoing in the spaces where the light can't reach.